The RSI Constellation was once the poster child for multi-role and multi-crew capable ships in Star Citizen, able to offer a variety of gameplay styles at a size that made it accessible to both solo players and small groups. Since those heady heights, many new ships have been introduced with shiny new features or stylish new looks, all of which distract attention from the OG. But much of what made the Constellation great still exists with the Andromeda, and although it could certainly use a refresh, that versatile core remains. So, how does the Constellation Andromeda perform in-game today? I'm Forrester, and in this video we'll explore the answer to that question by reviewing the currently flyable Constellation Andromeda, which is described on the Star Citizen website as a medium freight/gunship. If you've seen other reviews on this channel, then you probably know what to expect, with this video following the usual format. It's split into 5 sections, starting with a ship tour, assessing combat performance, reviewing handling and visibility, looking at the operating costs before finally summarising. As always, I've included timestamps in the video description in case you want to skip ahead. And if you're one of the many people watching who isn't yet subscribed to the channel, you might consider it so you can be notified of future Star Citizen videos as they go live. We'll start the tour for the Constellation Andromeda by approaching from the front. Most players will enter the ship via a deployable elevator under the middle of the front section. There are additional entry points through the cargo bay or through one of the docking ports located on either side of the ship. Following the elevator up takes you into Section B of the Constellation. Helpfully, from front to back, the Constellation is split into 4 sections, A through D, which are clearly marked. This is Section A at the front of the ship, which houses the 2 turrets, as well as the 3 cockpit positions. There's some component access at the back. The upper and lower turret are both accessed through this module. There are 2 co-pilot seats flanking a pilot seat in the centre of the ship. Moving back into Section B, this is the habitation section. There's a small cubby with some facilities inside, as well as some decorative lockers. And weapons racks. There's some seating with a deployable table, which works not very often in the current patch. And 4 beds for the crew use. Moving back into Section C, this section houses the large cargo bay which deploys on a ramp. As you can see, it's ample size to fit vehicles in as well. There's a visual representation of the missiles aboard, as well as on either side an airlock. This is a useful way to be able to enter into the Constellation from zero gravity. Using the buttons, the ramp can deploy down to ground level for loading or offloading vehicles, or easily loading or offloading cargo on the cargo grid. Moving back through to Section D, there's some more component access. And right at the back of the ship in Section D is the docking collar for the Merlin snub fighter. The pilot armament aboard the Andromeda is primarily a set of 4 size 5 mounts, by default equipped with 4 size 4 Rhino repeaters on gimbals. That gives the Constellation a lot of forward-facing firepower in a relatively forgiving aiming circle, which is particularly effective against medium to large ships that can't maneuver away. The pilot further has access to a suite of missiles with 24 size 2 and 28 size 1 missiles. There's no getting away from the fact that that makes for a lot of missiles, able to further amplify the firepower of the Constellation. There are 2 manned turrets available, one upper and one lower, both armed with dual-sized 2 Badger repeaters. The firepower they add isn't huge when compared to the main armament, but do offer some coverage around the ship with a couple of notable blind spots. Still, the turrets are particularly helpful if fighting off fighter-sized craft. Defensively, the Constellation carries a single size 3 shield generator, which is a pretty powerful beast, able to soak up a fair amount of damage, especially from smaller craft. All of that together makes the Constellation Andromeda a very viable platform for combat against AI targets, both for a single player and a small crew. This is not a ship that's left wanting in the firepower department. Looking out of the front of the Andromeda, there are some cockpit struts that marginally obstruct visibility. They're almost a trademark of the Constellation series, but aren't actually too bad. The position of the cockpit right at the front of the ship makes things a little easier to see, with windows covering the sides, above and below to some extent. The SCM speed limiter defaults to 144 meters per second, which actually feels quite fast in the Constellation whilst planetside. This is a fairly heavy ship and feels like it as you fly around. That means, from a handling perspective, expect drifts through turns and some element of anticipating maneuvers. The Andromeda does come with VTOL engines that can be toggled by the pilot, which opens some small doors which show the VTOL thrusters. The top speed of the Andromeda is 911 meters per second, which isn't really unusual for a ship at this size, but isn't going to set any speed records either. When landing, because of the way that the gear is positioned right at the back of the ship, there can sometimes be a slight wobble of the nose to account for. Many pilots would choose to do this by coming to a complete stop before tapping down, or lightly raising the nose prior to touchdown to account for the effect. The stock quantum drive is the bolon, and regular viewers of the channel will know the disdain with which that word is held here. It's really not great, and an upgrade to a faster drive would be advised in most circumstances, with the Constellation having more than adequate quantum fuel stores to accommodate. The Constellation is a middle-of-the-road sized ship, and so the costs to refuel, rearm and repair can also be middle-of-the-road sized, depending on what activity has been undertaken. The most expensive outcomes are likely to be repair bills or missile restocking, which could go into the thousands or even tens of thousands of Alpha UEC. But the Andromeda has a lot of possible ways with which to earn that back. With 96 SCU of cargo storage, it's feasible to make some profits through cargo hauling, albeit not to the level of the larger cargo haulers. That said, the bay is often well sized to pick up the higher margin, lower volume trade goods which are often in short supply. The fact that the cargo bay also doubles up as a vehicle bay opens up the possibility of rock mining, using the Andromeda to ferry a rover around and provide a relatively safe space. That's particularly easy with the Constellation owing to the drive-on, drive-off functionality. But for many players, the Andromeda will excel at making money through combat contracts, with heavy enough weapons and strong enough defences to deal with all manner of lucrative combat missions, even with just a solo pilot. Through most of those options, the Constellation Andromeda can more than cover the running costs. By way of loadout changes, swapping the quantum drive is a real must for any serious pilot of the ship, and XL1 might be a good recommendation. Out with that, the combat pilots might choose to upgrade the shield generator, perhaps to an FR86 or similar, as well as potentially swapping out the weapons, depending on personal preference. The stylings of the Constellation, particularly the Andromeda model, are pretty interesting. This is a ship that has undergone an improvement pass over its lifetime, but also it's a ship that might benefit from another. Inside, the layout does show its age, but there's also a charm to it, showcasing the functional RSI build. The simplicity of the layout is notable too, with a single deck to navigate, going from front to back for everything that you might need to find. There are some neat animations for the toggle of VTOL and missile modes, and the big headlamps up front help to illuminate dark spots. But the age also causes problems. Sometimes there is a UI bug which makes the heads-up display jittery and hazy and impacts frame rates negatively. The docking ports are functionally useless for the purpose for which they were designed, although they are actually quite handy for zero-G entry to the ship. Sometimes docking the Merlin to the back can go explosively badly, and as much as the Constellation performs fairly well, many players have moved on in favour of newer and shinier models, leaving this thing often consigned to past experience. However, the Constellation does continue to perform fairly well. It's versatile, able to flex into different playstyles, offering a key platform to experience different parts of the game. It has vehicle storage as well as the snub Merlin in the back. It's a little gimmicky for sure, but whilst this isn't a review of the Merlin, it's worth mentioning that the combat performance is pretty good, at least until the ammo runs out, but the experience of flying a fast, powerful fighter off the back and then docking again can be very fun, worth a try if you haven't already. Moreover, the Constellation is in that sweet spot of having plenty of multi-crew tasks at hand, but also being very effective to fly for the solo pilot. That means that an Andromeda owner could use the same ship when flying solo as when wanting to take to the stars with friends. And that brings us to price. The Andromeda comes in at 3.5 million Alpha UEC in-game, or $240 for real cash. That's about average for a ship at this size, although the cash price is a lot of money to pay for a virtual spaceship. The main challenge comes in the form of the alternatives. For somebody wanting to lean into combat, the Corsair comes in for about the same price, both in-game and for cash, and is marginally better armed, as well as carrying more of a cool factor. So for players leaning more towards combat, the Corsair becomes an attractive alternative. For players leaning more towards cargo hauling or solo gameplay, the Constellation Taurus is cheaper by 300,000 credits in-game or $50 for cash. Whilst it doesn't have the second turret or the Merlin of the Andromeda, it does have the same powerful armament for the pilot and more cargo storage for lugging trade goods around, and for cheaper. So that makes things difficult for the Constellation Andromeda. It's a great ship by all accounts, and especially for a group, but the competition is fierce, which largely relegates the Andromeda to a niche of being able to flex into a crew of 4, or for people who really like the way she looks and flies, which I have some sympathy for. But do you agree? I look forward to reading your thoughts on the Constellation Andromeda in the video comments. You may or may not be aware, but the first Star Citizen video to really take off on this channel was a Constellation Andromeda review video over 3.5 years ago at time of recording. So it does feel interesting to see what has changed and what has stood still in that time, both in the ship itself, as well as the video production techniques for this YouTube channel. You can let me know in the video comments if you remember that one. As always, if you're not yet subscribed, you might consider it if you got this far to give YouTube the nudge to suggest similar videos to you in the future, and it would also be really helpful to me if you would press that like or dislike button to guide me as to what videos you're enjoying the most, so I can focus on making the most relevant videos in the future. Otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.